Every day before the sun broke over the horizon, Ranger Charlie would lace up his sturdy boots and step outside. The crisp morning air filled his lungs as he made his way through the dense forest that had become like a second home to him. Charlie wore a weathered green uniform, its pockets stuffed with tools and goodies for the animals he encountered along the way. He loved being outdoors, surrounded by the sounds of rustling leaves and chirping birds. As a ranger, Charlie's responsibilities extended far beyond just patrolling the park. He was a guardian of nature, and he took this duty seriously. If you enjoy this video, please like the video and subscribe for more. And tell me where you are watching from today. I always find it awesome to see where all my viewers are watching from. Let's get back to the video. Each day brought new adventures. Whether it was leading school groups on nature hikes, checking wildlife monitoring cameras, or repairing trails, his heart swelled with pride when he saw families enjoying the beauty of the park. He knew that sharing this incredible place would inspire others to love and protect it as he did. After his morning routine, Charlie would often grab his binoculars and head out into the grassy plains where different animals roamed freely. He had an incredible ability to spot critters that others might miss. Whether it was a family of deer quietly grazing or a hawk soaring high above, Charlie cherished every moment he spent observing wildlife in their natural habitat. He never rushed. He took his time to appreciate every sight and sound. Every day, however, was not just about fun and discovery. Ranger Charlie also faced challenges. Sometimes he encountered animals in distress, and each situation weighed heavily on his heart. He had learned long ago that nature could be both beautiful and brutal. Animals face dangers from natural disasters, poachers, and even illnesses. Charlie was always ready to help when he could. With a first aid kit slung over his shoulder, he had a knack for comforting injured creatures, using both gentle words and skilled hands. His passion for wildlife conservation sprouted from childhood experiences spent exploring the forests with his grandfather. They would spend hours watching squirrels scurry up trees or listening for the calls of songbirds. Those moments anchored Charlie's love for animals deep within him. He believed that every animal had a role in the ecosystem, and it was his job to protect them and ensure their survival. That particular morning felt different. The golden sun rays began to seep through the trees, casting playful shadows on the ground. As Charlie trekked deeper into the grasslands, he felt an unusual stillness in the air. Perhaps it was just his imagination, but something about this day hinted at an adventure waiting beyond the next hill. Charlie paused to wipe sweat from his brow while scanning the long stretches of tall grass. Suddenly, he spotted something unusual, a flash of movement that caught his eye. With curiosity piqued, he adjusted his binoculars and focused on the area ahead. At first glance, it seemed like a bundle of fur nestled amongst the grass. Unable to shake the feeling that something was wrong, Charlie approached cautiously. As he got closer, his heart sank at what he saw. A small lion cub, no older than a few months, lay alone and wounded on the ground. Its bright eyes were filled with fear as it struggled to move. Charlie's heart raced. He immediately recognized how vulnerable this little creature was, without its mother nearby. The sight stirred all of his protective instincts. He knelt slowly beside the cub, careful not to startle it further. The soft whimpers of the tiny lion echoed around him as it tried to lift its head, but winced in pain instead. "Hey there, little one," Charlie whispered soothingly, reaching out a hand in a gentle gesture of peace. With steady hands, he examined the cub's injuries and assessed its condition. Each cut and bruise told a story. This little one had clearly been through a lot. Regardless of how bad things looked, Charlie knew he had to act quickly to save it. The ranger gently spoke to the cub as he pulled out his first aid supplies. He bandaged its wounds as best as he could, trying to provide some comfort with his voice while working tirelessly. Yet amidst all his efforts, worry gnawed at him. Where was the mother? Was she nearby? After treating the cub's injuries, Charlie decided that he needed to stay close by, hoping against hope that its mother would return soon. He couldn't leave this poor creature alone in such a dangerous world without familial protection. So he sat down on the grass beside it, keeping watch over the tiny lion while also keeping an eye on the surrounding landscape. As he settled in for what felt like a long wait, he reflected on his role as protector, not just for this cub, but for all animals. Every day offered new challenges and unforeseen adventures in nature's wondrous playground. Little did he know that today would bring surprises beyond anything he could have imagined. The bond between man and nature would soon be tested in ways that would leave him breathless. As Ranger Charlie sat quietly in the tall grass, watching over the frail lion cub, he couldn't shake the eerie stillness that surrounded him. The chirps of birds seemed to fade into the background, and even the gentle rustle of leaves felt muted, as if nature itself was holding its breath. Charlie's heart raced with worry for the little creature, and he scanned the horizon for any sign of the mother. Suddenly, a flicker of movement caught his eye. He stood up cautiously and moved toward where he thought he saw something shift in the grass. As he stepped carefully through the golden blades that brushed against his legs, Charlie felt a mix of hope and fear. What if it was something dangerous? What if it was just another animal? Each step grew, heavier with anticipation. As he drew closer, his heart sank further as he realized that it wasn't just any animal. It was another small creature in distress. There, fragmented by the tall grass and almost camouflaged, lay a tiny lion cub whimpering softly. Its tawny fur was matted with dirt and dried blood, marking it as injured and alone. The sight shook him to his core. Charlie's instincts kicked in. He knelt beside the cub, careful not to overwhelm it. The little lion looked up at him with wide, fearful eyes, shimmering like golden marbles under the morning sun. It let out a soft whimper again, trying to lift its head but quickly collapsing back down in pain. Instantly, Charlie could see the cuts on its small legs and flanks, each one telling a story of struggle. "Hey there," Charlie whispered soothingly, hoping to calm its visible fear. He reached out slowly, allowing the cub to sniff his fingers before making contact. It seemed skittish, but didn't pull away completely, an encouraging sign amidst the dreadful circumstances. As he examined the cub more closely, Charlie noticed several deeper wounds. One on its hind leg seemed particularly bad, a dark gash that made him wince just looking at it. It must have been through something terrifying to end up in this state. Alone and defenseless in a vast grassland that should have provided safety, but had instead become a place of danger. Charlie felt an emotional weight pressing down on his chest as he realized how vulnerable this little creature truly was without its mother nearby. He had read plenty about wildlife struggles, but witnessing it firsthand struck him more intensely than any book could convey. This tiny being depended on him now. He had to help. "Don't worry," he murmured as he carefully unzipped his bag to retrieve his first aid supplies. "I'm going to help you." His voice remained gentle as he worked quickly yet meticulously. Adrenaline fueled his actions while fear simmered beneath the surface. He started by cleaning gently around the wounds with a disinfectant wipe from his kit. The cub shivered at first, but eventually calmed when it recognized that Charlie wasn't a threat. Rather, he was trying to ease its pain. As he applied bandages to each injury, he spoke softly about nothing in particular. Stories from his own childhood or tales of resilient animals returning to their homes after healing. The ranger's hands were steady despite his racing thoughts. A jumble of concern for both the cub's well-being and whether its mother would come back soon. He couldn't shake off that gnawing worry. Where could she be? Had she abandoned her cub? Was she hurt too? Just then, a low growl echoed through the air, a sound so primal that it sent chills down Charlie's spine. The cub lifted its head at once, ears perked up in alarm as it responded instinctively to the noise surrounding them. Charlie's pulse quickened again. Was this an indication that danger lurked nearby? Or possibly, could it be its mother? As much as part of him wanted to hide away from potential threats, another part urged him not to move until he knew more about what was unfolding around them. He held on to hope tightly, the hope that nature would provide for this innocent little life left behind in such a perilous situation. With every moment spent beside the injured cub, Ranger Charlie felt their bond strengthen. They were two souls connected by uncertainty, yet united through compassion for each other's plight. Time passed slowly under the warm sun, while Charlie remained vigilant over both the fragile creature before him and what lay beyond. The very essence of survival playing out before their eyes. Just then, as if summoned by fate itself or some unseen force guiding them forward together through adversity, rustling began again beyond their immediate surroundings. The atmosphere crackled with anticipation. A heartbeat echoed louder between man and beast under challenging circumstances, all waiting for what would come next. Ranger Charlie knelt beside the small lion cub, his heart heavy with concern. The sight of the tiny creature alone and wounded pulled at his very core, igniting a fierce sense of compassion within him. He couldn't help but think about how helpless this little one was without its mother, defending itself against the dangers lurking in the grasslands. He felt an overwhelming urge to help, to comfort, and to protect. "Okay, little one," Charlie murmured softly, trying to coax the frightened cub as he reached out a gentle hand. He knew that sudden movements could frighten it further, so he approached slowly, allowing the cub to see his intentions were kind. Its wide eyes reflected fear and pain, making the weight of its predicament feel even heavier on his heart. As he got closer, Charlie noticed how frail the cub appeared. Its small body shivered as if every breath it took was a struggle. The cuts on its legs glistened under the sun, each one a reminder of the harshness of life in the wild. He felt a rush of empathy as he realized that this little creature was fighting for its survival in a world filled with challenges. "Let me help you," Charlie whispered, lowering himself closer to the ground to be on the same level as the cub. In that moment, he felt a connection, a shared understanding of vulnerability that transcended species. He could see that despite its fear, the cub was curious about him. It tilted its head slightly as it tried to gauge this new presence in its life. "Don't be scared. I'm here," he continued softly, wishing he could somehow convey all his compassion through his voice. With deliberate care, he extended his hand toward the cub's face, letting it sniff his fingers gently before making contact. His heart soared a little when the cub leaned forward tentatively, allowing him to touch its fur briefly before retreating again. Charlie's mind raced with thoughts on how to assess the cub's injuries without causing it more pain. It was essential to be patient and let the animal dictate how much trust it was willing to give. He took a calming breath and shifted slightly to give the cub space, while still remaining close enough to offer comfort. "I'm going to take a look at you now," he said quietly, and began inspecting its wounds carefully. He noticed how alert the tiny creature had become since his gentle approach. Though it was still trembling with fear, there was a flicker of hope in its eyes when it realized someone was there to help. From his pack, Charlie pulled out a disinfectant wipe and gauze bandages, tools that would assist him in tending to this injured being. As he prepared himself mentally for what lay ahead, he reminded himself that speed was essential, but not at the cost of being careful. Each action needed to show kindness and respect for the cub's fragile state. He started by cleaning around the worst gash on its hind leg while talking softly about everyday things, the wind rustling through trees or birds singing high above. To Charlie's relief, with every tender stroke of his hand, the cub seemed to relax just a bit more under his care. It no longer flinched as much and occasionally leaned into his touch. "See? You're going to be okay," he reassured it as he cleaned off dirt and old blood from the wounds with steady hands. Charlie could feel his heart swelling with compassion each time he looked into those bright eyes. They were filled with both fear and a tentative trust that gave him renewed energy. As he bandaged each cut, Charlie's thoughts drifted toward what had happened to this little one. Had it been abandoned? Had something threatened its safety? The worries spun around in his mind like leaves caught in a breeze. Yet amidst those thoughts, there was also determination. He would not let this innocent creature suffer without support. After tending to all of its wounds, Charlie sat back for a moment, examining his work while giving the cub some time to breathe and recover from the ordeal. He could see that it wasn't entirely healed, but had received some much-needed care, a small victory in itself. "Now we wait," he told the cub softly, while keeping watch over their surroundings. The world felt fragile around them, but Charlie's spirit remained resolute. They would face whatever came next together, man and beast united by compassion and hope. The bond forming between them became tangible in the warm sunlight filtering through the grasslands. Time seemed to stretch as they shared this moment. Charlie knew every second counted as they held on to hope for both survival and reunion with its mother. Together, they would wait patiently until fate intervened once again, ready for whatever might unfold next on this unexpected journey. With the sun shining gently overhead, Ranger Charlie focused his attention on the small lion cub. He could see the fear in its wide eyes, but now there was also a hint of trust beginning to break through. The bond they had formed in such a short time made Charlie feel more determined than ever. He took a deep breath, grounding himself as he reached for his first aid supplies. "Okay, little one," he said softly, keeping his voice calm and steady. "Let's take care of those wounds." Charlie pulled out a disinfectant wipe and gauze bandages from his pack, trying to remember all the training he had received in first aid. He knew that every movement needed to convey reassurance and gentle care, especially since the cub was already so frightened. He began by inspecting the worst injury, the deep gash on the cub's hind leg. It looked painful and raw, but Charlie knew that he had to clean it before applying any bandages. As he leaned closer, he could see how the dirt and dried blood clung to the skin around the wound. With tender hands, he wiped away the grime with the disinfectant wipe, whispering soothing words as he worked. "You're doing great," he encouraged, watching closely for any signs of distress. The cub flinched slightly at first, when the cool wipe touched its skin, but quickly settled down. It seemed to sense that Charlie only wanted to help. Each gentle stroke of his hand was meant to comfort, to tell the cub that it was safe with him. Charlie's heart ached for this little creature. Its fragility reminded him of how harsh life could be in the wild. He couldn't help but wonder what kind of ordeal it must have faced to end up alone and injured like this. As he cleaned the wound, he felt a surge of determination wash over him. He would do everything in his power to ease its suffering. Once he finished cleaning the deep gash, Charlie carefully applied antiseptic ointment. He knew that this step was crucial to prevent infection. But seeing the cub wince again made him feel guilty for causing it any additional pain. "I know it hurts," he said softly, brushing his fingers along its back as if offering comfort. "But I promise it will get better." After treating the worst wound, Charlie moved on to the smaller cuts and scrapes across the cub's body. Each injury told a story, tales of hardship and survival in a world where danger lurked around every corner. With every new bandage wrapped around its tiny legs and belly, Charlie felt a sense of purpose swell within him. These small acts were helping to mend not just physical wounds, but emotional ones too. As he worked diligently, Charlie shared stories with the cub about happy moments spent in nature, like watching baby birds take their first flight or spotting deer grazing peacefully at dusk. He hoped that his words would create a soothing atmosphere, allowing the little lion to relax as he tended to each injury. "Soon enough, you'll be running around with your mom again," he promised genuinely, picturing what it would be like when they were reunited. "And I bet you'll have some amazing adventures together." The thought made him smile, despite their serious situation. Charlie could see that with each passing minute, the cub was becoming less tense under his touch. It seemed to understand that this human was not an enemy, but rather an ally, a protector dedicated to its recovery. The tiny creature leaned into him a bit more as he wrapped up the last bandage. Charlie savored this moment as it felt powerful, yet tender. After finishing his work, he sat back on his heels and took a deep breath, feeling both relief and satisfaction wash over him. The cub was still fragile and vulnerable, but now it bore fresh bandages, small tokens of hope against its injuries. Charlie found solace in knowing that he'd done everything possible for this little one at that moment. "Now we wait," he murmured as he settled back beside it once again, keeping watch over their surroundings. His heart remained heavy with concern for both this tiny life and what lay ahead. Still, there was a flicker of optimism growing within him as well, a belief that they would face whatever came next together. With warmth from the sun filtering down around them and a gentle breeze rustling through the grasslands, Charlie felt comforted by their connection, an unspoken promise made between man and beast amidst uncertainty. Time passed slowly as they shared this quiet moment. Both were awaiting fate's next chapter while holding on to hope for safety and reunion with loved ones yet unknown. In this fragile space of healing and companionship, Charlie realized how vital compassion was, not just for survival, but for truly understanding one another within nature's vast web of life. Little did they know that soon enough their journey would take an unexpected turn. But for now, they existed in peace together, beneath an endless sky filled with promise. As Ranger Charlie finished bandaging the last of the cub's wounds, he sat back and took a deep breath, feeling a mix of relief and anxiety. The little lion had settled somewhat, its breathing steadier now that it had received some care. Still, Charlie's heart was heavy with concern. He knew that the cub needed its mother, and without her, it would be vulnerable in the vast grasslands. "I can't leave you here alone," he murmured softly to the cub, who lay curled up in the grass beside him. He had made a promise to himself and to this little creature. He would stay until its mother returned. But as the minutes turned into hours, Charlie felt the weight of worry press down on him like a heavy stone. What if the mother didn't come back? What if something had happened to her? He scanned the horizon, searching for any sign of the lioness. The sun hung high in the sky, casting long shadows on the ground, and the sounds of nature surrounded him. Birds chirping, leaves rustling in the gentle breeze. But none of it brought him comfort. Instead, every sound heightened his anxiety. He felt that he was not just waiting. He was actively guarding this tiny life against an uncertain fate. Charlie knew he had to remain alert. As a ranger, he understood the dangers that lurked in the wild. Other predators could pose a threat to the cub, especially if they caught a whiff of its presence. He glanced around frequently, making sure they were safe from harm while also trying to keep his own fears at bay. "Stay close, little one," he whispered, as if his words could somehow shield the cub from danger. He couldn't shake the feeling of helplessness that crept in as time passed. Each moment felt like an eternity, and as he watched the sun inch across the sky, doubt began to gnaw at him. What if he was wrong to stay? What if he was only delaying the inevitable? He pushed those thoughts away, reminding himself that this was not just about survival, but also about hope. The cub needed him now more than ever. To distract himself from spiraling worries, Charlie began to talk to the cub again, sharing tales about his own adventures in the forest, stories about playful otters sliding down muddy banks or majestic elephants lumbering through the trees. He hoped that his gentle voice would provide some comfort to the frightened animal. "You'll be strong one day, just like them," he said, imagining what it would be like for this little one to grow up roaming freely with its family. As he spoke, Charlie reached out his hand and gently stroked the cub's fur. It leaned into his touch, finding solace in his presence. That small gesture reminded him that despite his fears, they were connected in this moment, a bond formed through compassion and care. Yet still, his heart ached with each passing minute, without any sign of the mother. Charlie weighed his options. He could try to venture out and look for her, but feared that leaving might put both him and the cub at risk. He chose instead to stay put, believing that the mother would instinctively return to her young one. After all, nature often had its own way of guiding animals back together. As daylight began to soften into evening hues of orange and pink, Charlie felt a shift in his spirit. He understood that waiting was part of being a protector. It tested his patience and resolve, but also reminded him of the importance of trust. Trusting that nature would work as it should, and trusting himself to do what was best for this little life. "Just hold on a bit longer," he said softly to the cub, whose eyes flickered open as if it understood his words. Charlie smiled faintly at the sight, feeling grateful for this quiet companionship amidst uncertainty. The shadows grew longer around them as dusk approached, painting a beautiful yet haunting backdrop against their vigil. Each rustle in the grass made Charlie's heart skip a beat. Every bird call made him tense up with anticipation. Yet he remained steadfast, determined to protect this fragile creature until its mother arrived. As night fell and stars began to twinkle, overhead, Charlie made a vow that echoed deep within him. He would not let fear dictate his actions. He would stay resolute and hopeful, waiting for nature to reveal its next chapter in this unfolding story. A reunion that could bring healing not just for the cub, but also for himself. In those still moments beneath a blanket of stars, Ranger Charlie clung tightly to hope. The hope that soon enough they would hear or see any sign of the lioness returning for her young one. Until then, he would be there, standing guard over this precious life in a world filled with both beauty and uncertainty, ready for whatever fate had in store. The twilight air was thick with suspense as Ranger Charlie kept a careful watch over the wounded cub. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows that danced across the grassland while creating pockets of darkness that felt alive with unseen activity. Although Charlie had tried to stay relaxed for the cub's sake, an unsettling awareness nagged at him, and his senses sharpened. Suddenly, strange noises began to echo from the tall grasses surrounding them. A rustling sound that sent a chill down Charlie's spine. It was not the usual chorus of chirping crickets or rustling leaves that accompanied quiet evenings in the wild. This was something else, something more erratic and unpredictable. His heart raced as each sound heightened his alertness, and he instinctively shifted closer to the cub, ensuring it felt his presence as a protective barrier. Was it an animal stalking nearby? Could it be another predator attracted by the scent of the vulnerable cub? Every instinct in Charlie screamed for him to pay attention, and he strained his ears to decipher the source of those unsettling sounds. The mixture of anxiety and determination swirled within him. He couldn't let anything happen to this little lion. "Stay close," he whispered again, although his voice was now laced with an edge of urgency. He gently pushed the cub back further into the grass, with one hand while searching diligently with his eyes for any movement among the shadows. As he scanned left and right, he could hear his own breathing quicken, each exhale loud against the silence that had fallen before this sudden disturbance. The rustling grew louder, loud enough that it felt nearly tangible, like a distant heartbeat pulsing through the ground beneath him. The mere idea that there could be danger lurking so near made sweat bead on Charlie's forehead. He focused on calming himself, yet adrenaline surged through him as primal instincts kicked into overdrive. Peering into the wavering darkness around them, Charlie's gaze landed on a nearby thicket of tall grass. There it was again, the series of cracks and snaps that almost sounded like footsteps. Could it be just some harmless creature going about its evening forage? Or was it something more sinister? Uncertainty gnawed at him like hunger as he clenched his jaw. Charlie adjusted his position, slightly so he could better protect the cub while also maintaining a clear line of sight toward where those strange sounds were coming from. Every instinct urged him to stay vigilant. If there was a threat out there, he needed to be ready. Not just for himself, but for this little life, relying wholly on him. Then came another noise, a deep grunt mixed with a growl. But this one resonated differently from any animal he'd heard before. It sent shivers down his spine and filled him with dread. "What in the world is that?" he murmured under his breath, anxiety gripping at his throat. He reminded himself to focus. Protecting the cub came first. Everything else could be dealt with later. As tension clawed at him, Charlie couldn't help but mentally replay every bit of knowledge he had accumulated over years spent in nature. The signs of danger, patterns of wild animals. But right now, nothing seemed reassuring or comforting. "Just hold on," he reassured both himself and the cub as he reached down to tuck it closer against him. He pressed his hand gently atop its head, feeling its small body rise and fall beneath his palm with each breath, stronger now despite its earlier frailty but still vulnerable in its own right. Just when Charlie thought things couldn't become tenser, another sound broke through, a harsh, snapping branch followed by hurried rustles growing louder and nearer. It took everything in him not to jump up in surprise. Instead, he kept still and focused deeply on their surroundings. He could practically feel danger closing in. The combination of residual daylight fading rapidly into darkness alongside whatever lurked just beyond their view created an atmosphere thick with suspense. He could hardly decide whether to chase after what might come or remain anchored beside this tiny, fragile life before him. And then silence fell abruptly over everything. like an unexpected blanket. A sudden stillness lit by twilight overhead, as if nature itself held its breath alongside them in anticipation of what would unfold next. Time stretched indefinitely. Seconds felt like hours as Charlie remained poised between hope and dread. The weight of uncertainty pressing heavily upon both man and beast beneath an enveloping darkness filled with unknowing eyes that watched closely from just beyond reach. In this momentary pause, where sounds lingered only briefly before slipping away again into silence, every pulse reverberated through the fabric of reality itself. A test not just for survival, but also for trust in something larger than themselves. With bated breath, Ranger Charlie prepared himself for whatever splintered moment would follow next. The echoes lingering much longer than anticipated along their journey together, through both shadows and light in these ever-changing wilds surrounding them all. The stillness of the night settled over Ranger Charlie and the wounded cub, enveloping them in a blanket of darkness. The strange sounds that had earlier filled Charlie with dread had all but ceased, leaving an eerie quiet that felt almost too heavy to bear. His heart raced as he strained to see into the thick shadows cast by the surrounding grass, still on high alert for any signs of movement. Just when he thought he couldn't endure another moment of waiting, a soft rustle broke the silence. Charlie's breath caught in his throat as he turned his head sharply toward the sound. The tension in his muscles heightened. He remained completely still, eyes wide with anticipation. Had something finally emerged from the darkness? Then, from behind a dense cluster of grass, a familiar silhouette began to take shape. A lioness stepping cautiously into view. At first, she was just a shadow among shadows, blending seamlessly into her surroundings. Charlie's heart pounded, not just from fear, but from an overwhelming sense of hope mixed with urgency. The lioness moved slowly and deliberately, her instincts on high alert as she scanned her environment for any threats. She seemed to hesitate for a moment, pausing to sniff the air before continuing forward. Charlie could see her golden coat shimmering faintly under the pale light of the moon. She was beautiful, yet fierce, an embodiment of raw power, tempered by maternal instinct. Charlie held his breath as he watched her approach. The mother lion would be protective and cautious. She would not reveal herself fully until she was certain it was safe. He understood that instinctively. The lioness was likely assessing whether there was danger nearby or if this human posed a threat to her cub. The little lion cub lay curled close to Charlie's legs, unaware of what was unfolding nearby. It seemed peaceful at that moment, but Charlie's heart raced with apprehension. Would it recognize its mother? Would it feel safe enough to call out? He felt an urge to gently nudge the cub awake and direct its attention toward the approaching lioness, but knew better than to disrupt such a delicate moment. As the cub slept soundly at his side, the lioness crept forward even more. Her gaze locked onto Charlie with calculating intensity. There was a flicker of uncertainty in her bright eyes as she assessed him. Was this person trustworthy? Did he mean harm? To reassure her and demonstrate his intentions were pure, Charlie slowly raised one hand above his head so as not to appear threatening while keeping his other hand firmly resting on the sleeping cub's back. "I'm here to help," he whispered softly into the night air, though unsure if she could understand him. For several agonizing seconds that felt like hours, the three figures coexisted. A man vigilant and ready to protect, a sleeping cub unaware of its mother's presence nearby, and a cautious lioness grappling with emotions only a mother could understand. Finally, something shifted within her demeanor. There was recognition in her gaze as she caught sight of her offspring nestled beside this human. In that instant, Everything seemed to click into place. Instinct and affection surged within the lioness as she cautiously approached closer still. Her movements were fluid yet deliberate, each step matched by an innate sense of urgency fueled by maternal love. Sensing its mother's presence nearby at last, the cub stirred slightly before blinking awake groggily. Confusion crossed its face for just a brief moment before excitement took over. Instinct kicked in as it recognized who stood before it. The small lion sprang up with newfound energy, letting out an eager whimper that echoed through the night, a sound laden with longing and recognition. Charlie watched in awe as the mother moved closer still until she stood directly before her cub, now alert and eager for reunion. With one gentle nudge from her large muzzle against its tiny form, relief washed over both their faces. The bond between them rekindled after an uncertain separation. Tears pricked at the edges of Charlie's eyes as he witnessed this emotional reunion unfold before him. It showcased life's resilience amidst hardship, a powerful testament reminding him why he loved nature and wildlife so deeply. Yet even amidst this joyful moment came caution. The mother's gaze flickered back towards Charlie once more, before she turned fully protective around her young one once again. Understanding flashed between them. Gratitude mingled with acknowledgement, a silent agreement cemented by shared experiences under these vast stars above them all. As relief flooded through him like warm sunlight breaking through clouds after rain, Ranger Charlie realized they had navigated through uncertainty together. The fragile thread binding man and beast strengthened by compassion amid that twilight world they inhabited while waiting for fate's next turn. In this unexpected arrival, filled with tension melting away into comfort, came lessons hard-earned about trust and survival, something deeper than words could ever describe, and reminded him that sometimes hope arrives quietly yet profoundly when least expected in nature's ever-changing embrace. As the mother lioness stepped into the clearing, her golden fur glimmered softly in the moonlight, reflecting a beauty and power that commanded respect. She moved with a grace that belied the fierce protectiveness that boiled just beneath the surface. Every instinct within her was honed to safeguard her young, and now that she had found her cub, nothing would stand in her way. The moment her eyes met those of the tiny lion resting beside Ranger Charlie, a spark ignited within her. A low growl rumbled deep in her throat, not of aggression toward Charlie, but an expression of fierce love and protectiveness for her injured child. She approached cautiously, each step deliberate as she assessed both the scene before her and the human who had been tending to her little one. Charlie watched closely, breathless at the emotional intensity unfolding before him. He could see the worry etched on the mother's face. She sensed something was amiss with her cub. The protective instinct that surged through her made it clear she was ready to confront any threat to ensure her offspring's safety. As she neared, the cub's eyes opened wide with recognition. It took only a heartbeat for instinct to kick in. With a soft whimper, the cub scrambled to its feet, shaking off any lingering sleepiness as it steadied itself. The world around them faded into insignificance. All that mattered was this reunion. "Come here, little one," the mother seemed to urge silently as she reached out with a gentle nudge of her muzzle against her cub's side. The affection radiating from that simple gesture spoke volumes about their bond. Charlie felt tears prick at his eyes again as he witnessed this raw display of love, one that transcended any barriers between species. The cub leaned into its mother's embrace, letting out a high-pitched mew filled with excitement and relief. It was as if they had been separated by miles, when in reality it had only been hours. Yet those hours felt like an eternity for both mother and child. In that moment of reunion, all pain and fear melted away. They were simply together again. As Charlie observed this tender exchange, he couldn't help but marvel at how nature worked in such profound ways. The lioness exuded strength while still embodying tenderness, a fierce protector who would go to great lengths for her young one, yet also cradle it with warmth and affection. It reminded him of his own experiences caring for animals. There was a beauty in nurturing life and witnessing its resilience. But beneath this joy lingered caution. Even now, the lioness remained vigilant as she scanned their surroundings carefully for any signs of danger. Her instincts were sharp, honed from years spent prowling through these lands as a hunter and protector alike. Charlie understood this well. He too had learned to respect nature's unpredictability. "Take your time," he whispered softly, allowing them this moment without intrusion. He remained seated quietly beside them, feeling both honored and humbled to be part of such an intimate reunion amidst nature's vastness. Once fully aware of its surroundings again, the little cub turned back toward Charlie, its gaze filled with curiosity now rather than fear. There was an unspoken understanding between them, a silent recognition that they had shared something significant during their brief time together. The mother lioness finally approached Charlie more closely than ever before. He could feel the tension easing away slowly yet surely as gratitude shimmered within those piercing eyes directed his way. For all his efforts to protect and care for her precious child, she seemed to acknowledge him silently, a bond forged through compassion and understanding amid uncertainty. As night deepened around them, and stars began twinkling brightly overhead like diamonds, scattered across velvet darkness, Ranger Charlie felt a new sense of peace settle within him. The air hummed softly with life as crickets resumed their serenade while owls hooted distantly. A reminder that despite challenges faced today under wild skies, tomorrow would come anew, laden with possibilities. The lioness sat back on her haunches nearby while keeping watch over both her cub and this unexpected ally who had stepped up during their time of need. In this tranquil scene painted by moonlight, where danger had once loomed heavily above them all earlier today, the bond between man and beast solidified beneath nature's embrace, a testament reminding him that sometimes love is fierce enough to overcome anything thrown along life's unpredictable paths. With hearts now intertwined through shared experiences echoing throughout open grasslands stretching endlessly before them all, Ranger Charlie held on to hope tightly. This reunion was not merely an end, but rather a beginning filled with promise under shimmering stars illuminating futures yet unknown. As Ranger Charlie sat quietly in the moonlit grass, he watched with a heart full of emotion as the mother lioness nurtured her cub. The sight of her gently nuzzling her little one filled him with overwhelming relief and joy. It was a moment that encapsulated the essence of life in the wild. Raw, beautiful, and intensely powerful. Charlie felt tears prick at his eyes as he observed how the lioness instinctively knew how to comfort and reassure her cub. She licked its wounds tenderly, her tongue working delicately against the bandages Charlie had applied earlier. The way she fussed over her child, nudging it to encourage movement and play, evoked feelings in him that transcended words. He marveled at the strength of their bond, a connection formed not just by blood, but by shared experiences and instincts. In witnessing this reunion, Charlie felt an even deeper respect for nature and its intricate web of life. It reminded him that every creature had its role. Each life was interwoven with others in ways he could never fully comprehend. The protective nature of the lioness mirrored the dedication he had as a ranger. Both were driven by love and responsibility for those entrusted to their care. As the mother lion continued to nurture her cub, Charlie reflected on his own journey through the forest that day. He had entered with a sense of purpose and passion for wildlife preservation, but left with a profound understanding of emotional connections that ran deeper than survival alone. His experiences with animals had always filled him with awe, but this moment, the raw display of maternal love, was something far beyond mere admiration. It was a reminder of life's resilience, even amid adversity. Watching them interact, he recalled the many times he had witnessed similar scenes in nature. A mother bird feeding her chicks under the protective cover of leaves, or a doe leading her fawn to safety through tall grass. Each instance held its own beauty and significance. But tonight was different. Tonight was personal. This was not just about survival. It was about love and trust, the very foundation upon which relationships were built. As the cub began to playfully bat at its mother's tail, Charlie chuckled softly to himself. The pure joy radiating from that little creature reminded him of simpler times in his own life, when happiness came easily and without complication. It warmed his heart to see such innocence thrive despite all that had transpired earlier in the day. Yet amidst this joy, there lingered a cautious awareness within Charlie. He understood well that danger could be lurking just beyond their cozy scene. Even now, he kept an eye on the dark edges of the grasslands, where predators might be prowling, watching for any signs that could threaten this precious moment. But for now, while the moon shone brightly overhead and crickets chirped in harmony, he allowed himself to relish this time spent quietly observing such a beautiful bond unfold before him. He felt grateful to have been part of it, to have played any role in ensuring their reunion. "Just look at you two," he whispered softly into the night air, more to himself than anyone else. "You've both made it through." As if sensing his presence, the mother lion glanced over toward him briefly, her expression shifting from watchfulness to appreciation. The understanding between them deepened. She acknowledged not just his presence, but also what he had done for her cub during their time apart. In that fleeting moment of connection, Charlie realized how powerful gratitude could be. It bridged gaps between worlds that seemed so different, but were inherently connected by love for family. As the night wore on and stars twinkled like diamonds scattered across a velvet darkness above them all, Charlie felt an overwhelming sense of peace wash over him. He knew that whatever lay ahead, whether challenges or triumphs, he would carry this experience with him forever. The bond formed between man and beast, under these vast skies, illuminated by gentle starlight, served as a poignant reminder that compassion knows no boundaries. It transcends differences and weaves together threads of existence into something greater than themselves. Ranger Charlie sat back against the grass, breathing deeply as he took in this magical scene unfolding before his eyes. The fierce love of a mother protecting her young one amid nature's embrace, and a ranger forever changed by witnessing such profound moments beneath those endless skies filled with promise. As the night continued to unfold under a blanket of stars, Ranger Charlie felt a sense of peace settle around him. The reunion between the mother lioness and her cub had illuminated the beauty of family bonds in nature, and he found himself reflecting on the day's events with newfound clarity. Watching the fierce love displayed by the lioness, began to understand just how important these connections were. Not just for animals, but for all living beings. Charlie looked up at the night sky, filled with bright stars that twinkled like promises. Each star seemed to represent a different story of survival, love, and resilience found in the wild. It struck him that every creature, no matter how big or small, was woven into a larger tapestry of life, where each thread mattered. The lioness's gentle nudge and her unwavering protectiveness served as a reminder that families, whether in the animal kingdom or among humans, share an inherent strength rooted in love and support. He remembered his own family and the lessons they had imparted over the years. They had taught him about kindness, responsibility, and standing by those who needed help. Now, witnessing this powerful display of maternal instinct reaffirmed those values in a profound way. Just as the lioness would fight fiercely for her cub, Charlie felt an overwhelming commitment to protect wildlife in his role as a ranger. The day had begun with uncertainty, worrying for a lost cub, but it had transformed into something magical. It was not just about rescuing an injured animal. It was about witnessing life's resilience and the unbreakable ties formed through love. This experience deepened his admiration for wildlife and reinforced his dedication to conservation efforts even more fervently than before. He thought about how fragile life can be. One moment, everything seems perfectly normal, and then danger can strike out of nowhere. But in that fragility lay great strength, the ability to recover, heal, and thrive if given the chance. Watching the mother lion gently groom her cub filled him with hope that they would both continue to flourish together in their natural habitat. As Charlie sat quietly beside them, he reflected on his role as a guardian of this wilderness. His heart swelled with pride, knowing he was part of something much larger than himself. A protector tasked with ensuring that such moments would continue to happen for generations to come. He realized that every effort he put into conservation mattered. Every time he educated others about wildlife or participated in environmental initiatives, it contributed to preserving these vital connections in nature. The bond between him and these magnificent creatures strengthened with every passing second. It became clear to him that he was not merely an observer, but an active participant in their world. A world where compassion transcends species barriers and where understanding can bridge gaps that seem insurmountable at first glance. With renewed determination coursing through him like a river flowing freely after rain, Charlie vowed to continue advocating for wildlife preservation wholeheartedly. He envisioned future campaigns aimed at protecting habitats and maintaining ecosystems so that families like this lioness and her cub could thrive without fear of losing each other. Nature has so much to teach us, he whispered into the quiet night air as crickets chirped softly around them. If we only take the time to listen. These simple words resonated deeply within him. They encapsulated everything he had witnessed today. The depth of emotion held within wild hearts beat strong alongside human spirits alike. As dawn began to break over the horizon, painting the sky with hues of gold and pink while chasing away shadows from the night before, Ranger Charlie prepared to leave this precious moment behind him, but knowing fully well its impact would remain forever etched in his heart. He stood up slowly, taking one last look at the mother lion and her cub playing gently together beneath their newfound security, a familial love under vast skies above them all. Symbols reminding him why nature must be cherished at all costs. With gratitude swelling within him, like sunlight breaking through clouds after rain, Ranger Charlie turned with purpose toward home, knowing that he would carry this lesson learned straight back into his work each day. That family bonds are powerful beyond measure and essential for survival. A truth worth fighting for amidst all life's unpredictable paths ahead.